Gray traces an auto mechanic, possibly among the last auto mechanics in this distant future where self-driving electric cars have taken over. He is working on a car for a wealthy client and finally gets the engine revving. He is married to wife Asha, who works for Cobalt, a tech company that focuses on robotic limbs for humans. Gray plans to return the car to his client and wants Asha to accompany him so she can drive him back. The two drive to what seems like an open vacant space, until Gray takes Asha and they descend long steps into an underground facility. They encounter Iran, Gray's client and the CEO of the most powerful tech company Vessel Computers. Asha thinks that their companies are similar, but Iran reveals that he is way ahead of them. He shows them the most powerful artificial brain called STEM that can do everything and anything way better than any human can. Gray and Asha are returning him in her self-driving car, where he is concerned that Iran's tech might put a lot of humans out of work. The two begin to fool around, not realizing that their car is diverting from its route. Gray realizes that the car is in a bad neighborhood and tries to stop, but there is an error as the car is seemingly hacked. Nothing they do can stop the now speeding car, and Gray barely manages to strap Asha into her seat before the car flips and crashes with them both. As the car lays there, another regular car pulls up and masked men pull Asha and Gray out of the car. Gray offers them his cash and cards, but they refuse. One gangster holds a scared Asha, telling her that he hates rich people like her before shooting her in the stomach. Gray tries to fight to get free, but the gangster shoots him in the back, paralyzing him on the spot, takes his ring and they all walk away. Gray tries to talk to Asha to keep her with him, but she dies right before his eyes and he breaks down in tears. The cops pull up after it has all gone down as usual to clean up the scene. Gray is taken to the hospital and spends weeks in a comatose state. 3 months later, Gray is confined to a wheelchair and provided with voice-controlled robotic arms to help with his daily tasks. His mother Pamela spends her days taking care of him, both physically and emotionally, as he is unable to get over the loss of Asha. They both visit the police station on multiple occasions to get updates on the case, but the lead detective, Cortez, has no idea who the culprits are. Gray is upset that they have all their drones but cannot get an ID, but Cortez explains that criminals are advanced and can build firewalls around their faces, making it hard to ID them. Depressed over the lack of progress and his inability to help, Gray unfortunately tries to end things by causing his robotic arms to overdose him on his medication, but it stops just before it gets fatal. Gray is again admitted in the hospital where he gets a surprise visit from Iran. Iran empathizes with Gray as he is the first friend he really had. He then offers Gray the STEM, explaining that it could fix him. The procedure would take place at Iran's condo, away from official eyes as it would be illegal. Gray refuses, saying that he is looking to end things at this point as he has no reason to live. Iran leaves after asking Gray to think about what Asha would want. Gray eventually agrees to the surgery and STEM is inserted into his brain. Gray awakens and instantly, he feels the movements return to his limbs to the amazement of Iran and himself. He manages to stand and walk and signs a confidentiality agreement with Iran to keep everything under wraps. Gray returns home where a package from Detective Cortez on his case is waiting for him. Gray is having a drink when suddenly he hears a voice. Turns out, STEM is speaking to him and introduces himself as the operating system controlling his body. Gray is spooked out by STEM and tells him to stop talking, but knowing that it is there now he cannot help but talking to STEM. STEM reveals that it speaks to him by sending sound waves to his eardrum, cannot read his mind, but can only respond to speech. The surveillance footage plays before him and STEM reveals to him that in the footage, the man that shot his wife had a gun implanted into his hand. STEM also reveals that the man who took Asha's purse has a marking on his hand. It is difficult for Gray to see, so STEM temporarily takes over his body and draws the image, which turns out to be a military barcode. STEM then reads the barcode, which has the thug's name and address, which is in Newtown. Gray wants to call Cortez, but STEM reveals that he has no proof and he must be positive he is the culprit before he alerts the police. Gray heads over to Newtown and sees the man drive away from his home. Once he leaves, Gray stands and walks over to the house, which is a manual lock, so Gray picks the lock and heads inside. STEM tells him to remove his shoes and reveals that the table is a smart table. So STEM scans the messages, but they find nothing. Suddenly they hear someone and STEM tells Gray to hide as a man walks in. STEM tells him to attack, but Gray hesitates and ends up getting thrown around and pinned. The man recognizes him from the night before and claims he had nothing to do with Asha's death. Gray is being choked out, but STEM offers to take over and Gray grants it permission. Suddenly, with super fast moves, Gray begins to beat the man back with no wasted movements. The two fight and the man tries pulling a knife, but STEM tells Gray to stay calm as he easily evades and eventually kills the man. STEM hands over control and Gray throws up. STEM tells him that he must clean up to hide his tracks and takes over to remove any trace of himself. Detective Cortez is called to the morgue to look at the body of the man Gray killed. The mortician reveals that the man had advanced computers hidden throughout his body and also a gun implanted into his arm. They were able to pull a single shoe print from the front porch which has traces of engine grease, making Cortez suspicious. Gray returns to Iran's home where the billionaire reveals that he can track Gray's movements. Stem cautions him that Iran knows everything, so he should not lie. Gray reveals to Iran that Stem has a voice of his own, which shocks him, but he still warns Gray to abandon his detective work unless he wants the authorities to remove Stem from his body. Meanwhile, Cortez is going over footage from the day the man was murdered when she sees Gray around the area. However, due to him being listed as a quadriplegic, the computers list him as an incompatible suspect. Cortez goes by Gray and is talking to him about his car, but Stem reveals that she is checking his boot to match prints. She mentions the murder in Newtown, revealing that she saw him on the drones, but Stem advises Gray how to respond to avoid drawing suspicion to himself. After Cortez leaves, Gray tells Stem that he wants to find the men responsible but wants to avoid killing anyone else. From the messages read back at the house, Stem says that he must visit a bar in Northtown in person, since he can find no online information about it. Doing this though would alert Iran to their location and he would try to shut Stem down remotely. Gray heads over to the Old Bones bar in Northtown in his wheelchair and Stem thinks they must come up with a plan. Gray heads into the bar, then suddenly begins to ask everyone for their attention. He thinks someone must know the men who killed his wife and he is asking anyone to step forward with information. Everyone begins to laugh at him and one man steps up telling him to get out. Gray then taunts the man, saying that he will kill him just like his friend. The man pushes Gray into the bathroom stalls and pushes him onto the floor. The man stabs him in the leg but Stem blocks his pain receptors. The man finally admits that he was there that night, so Gray jumps into action and easily wipes out the men in the room. He demands the name of Asha's killer but the man refuses, so Stem suggests that he use the knife to make him talk. Stem takes over and slices up his face, so the man reveals that they were given a job to kill Asha by their ringleader Fisk. Stem suddenly alerts Gray that Iran is trying to shut him down and they must find a hacker to help subvert the code. Stem has already located a hacker nearby and warns him to move now. Stem tells him to take a man's gun and a pen and leave the chair behind. Stem gives Gray some code and they get to the building when Iran begins to shut Stem down. Gray staggers into the building, hearing Stem's voice get distorted by the second. Back at the bar in Newtown, Fisk turns up and scans the dead man's eye implant, which replays what happened, and he gets Gray's current location. Gray manages to get to the door and call for Jamie just before Iran shuts him down. Jamie comes to the door revealing to be a woman and he hands over the cash and is dragged inside. Jamie plugs into Stem and begins to input the code on Gray's arm to remove the input guards. Meanwhile, Fisk and another man turn up to the apartment. Jamie completes the task, telling Gray that he can move once Stem reboots, but she spots Fisk on the cameras and decides to leave him there. Soldiers from Vessel also turn up hunting for their property. Fisk and his man get to the room to see Gray dragging himself on the floor. Stem suddenly comes online and Gray skillfully evades the two men before escaping, the other man shooting at him with his gun arm. Fisk uses X-ray vision to see the two Vessel guards in the elevator and kill them before they can exit. Gray manages to escape to the roof of the building but gets cornered. Stem decides to end things quickly and brutally kills the man with his own gun. Fisk is too late and only sees his man dead. Gray gets home planning to get rest when he suddenly stumbles upon his mother. He decides to explain everything to her about his operation but tells her she must keep it a secret. Gray wakes up to see a vision of Asha and could even feel her, until his mother brings Detective Cortez to see him. Cortez reveals that they found his wheelchair abandoned in Northtown, but Stem gives Gray an excuse to give the detective. Unknown to him, Cortez places a listening device into his jacket before leaving. Gray is distraught and wants them to stop what they are doing, but Stem warns that Fisk will find him if he stays there. Stem then shuts down, then tells Gray that without him he is still a cripple. Stem tells Gray that his instructions to remove the input guard blocked access to Iran but also gave him autonomy, meaning he can control Gray without permission. Stem has decided to go after Fisk and finish the job and begins to move Gray. Pamela pleads with him to stop, but Gray reveals that he has no choice. Cortez, who is overhearing the entire conversation, sees Gray leave the house and decides to follow. Stem finds the listening device and realizes that Cortez is following them. Gray speeds up, but Cortez turns on her lights and begins to gain on him. Stem gives Gray control since he is driving a manual car and he manages to stay ahead. Stem then hacks into a car nearby and causes it to slam into Cortez's car, disabling it. Cortez returns to talk with Pamela, who tells her about Stem. Fisk returns to his apartment where Gray ambushes him and holds him at gunpoint. Fisk reveals that he was once military, but when he got injured the government turned him into weapon, and notes that he is stronger than Gray and Stem. He tells Gray that Asha was not the target, Gray was. The two begin to battle each other, moving like two machines, matching each other's strikes perfectly. Stem is astonished at Fisk's ability to predict his moves. Fisk proves to be stronger and manages to knock Gray down, leaving Stem without options. Stem urges Gray to do something, so with quick thinking, he realizes that the first man he killed was Fisk's brother and begins to taunt him. Fisk reacts out of anger, allowing Stem to overpower and kill him. Gray takes Fisk's phone and scans his messages where it is revealed that Iran was the one who hired Fisk. Gray drives over to Iran's condo and kills his guards before coming face to face with Iran. Gray accuses him of killing Asha for a simple experiment, but Iran reveals that this was not his doing. Cortez turns up holding Gray at gunpoint demanding that he drop his gun. Stem seemingly obeys her instructions but knocks her back as she tries to handcuff Gray. Stem then grabs Asha by the neck and attempts to kill her but Gray begins to fight back against his controls. Stem regains control and grabs Cortez but this time she uses her taser to knock him down. Iran grabs his gun, tearfully revealing that he is no longer in control of the company and that he was taking instructions from Stem all along. It is revealed that Stem wished to be human after gaining sentience. Stem wished to kill Iran, leading Gray right to him as Iran is the only person who can build another like Stem. Stem then agrees with everything Iran says, explaining that he needed a pure specimen without implants to fully evolve. Stem then begins to speak through the building's speakers, telling Iran to put the gun down but suddenly gains control over Gray once more and kills Iran. Stem then tries to kill Cortez once more but Gray tries fighting back once more and manages to put the gun to his head. Gray wakes up in a hospital room able to move and is shocked to see Asha come to greet him. She tells him he had an accident and he was unconscious for a couple days. In reality, Gray's mind has broken and Stem has taken full control, revealing this to be his plan all along. He then shoots Cortez dead before leaving the place now fully in control and with no one to stop him. Remember to turn on notifications, so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.